With all the college football playoff talk, with the 12-team playoff now, the bowl games are more overlooked than ever. But we're going to give a little bit of love to the other bowl games here in this video. I'm going to give you the top 10 bowl games in my opinion. Look, I get it. I understand. We're going to have a ton of opt-outs. We're going to have players. We already have players in the transfer portal. And so you're not going to see these teams at full strength. And it's very hard to rank these games when you don't know who's going to be playing. So we're just going to have to kind of look at it as if most of the starters are going to play. Again, really don't know how it's going to go. I can't keep up with it. I can't keep track of all the opt-outs and all the transfers and all that. So again, we're just going to view these games as if the starters were playing in these games, and it'll just be what it'll be. And I know a lot of people hate the opt-outs and you think that it's bad and all that. But think about it like this. If you have a team in the Pop-Tarts Bowl, your favorite team is playing in the Pop-Tarts Bowl, and you've got a senior quarterback, it'll be his final game if he plays, last chance to see him, but then you've got an upcoming quarterback, a guy that's going to be the future, that's going to be the starter the next year. Which would you rather see play? For me, I actually like seeing the young guys play. It's almost like a preview for the next season. So for that reason, I'm not totally against the opt-outs. If you get two really good teams in a bowl game, obviously I'd love to see all the starters play just as a fan. But if it's my specific team, maybe the opt-outs are not the worst thing in the world. Again, gives you an early look maybe at the next year's team. We saw that with Miller Moss and USC last year. I can't remember the team. There was another quarterback that was taken over. Jackson Arnold at Oklahoma, I think that he played the bowl game last year. So, it's kind of neat to see the young guys, the next wave of players play in this game. But I get it. I get both sides of the argument. But so we're going to go through these games. Again, these are the most intriguing bowl games for me. And we will start with number 10. That is Minnesota versus Virginia Tech in the Duke's Mayo Bowl. This game will be on. This is actually after New Year's. So I like that we've got. I'm not sure how many games after New Year's, but it used to be where you had the New Year's games and then you had, a few nights in a row after New Year's, we got a few more bowl games. And I always liked that. I'd like to stretch it out as far as we can get, I'd love to have a game every single night if possible. But this one's on the Friday after New Year's. The game will be on ESPN. You see Minnesota favored by 4.5. I think I saw a stat with Virginia Tech where maybe 5 of their 6 losses were one-score games. That may not be right. They had a lot of close calls. And I'll be honest, I didn't really watch a lot of ACC football this year. The way the schedule's set up, there just weren't many big games in the ACC. You had SMU and Miami didn't really play anybody, although I found myself watching Miami a lot this year. Clemson didn't play too tough of a schedule, and you had a lot of bad teams in the ACC. So I didn't see much of Virginia Tech. Minnesota, I saw a little bit more. This is a team that I think was pretty solid this year, and they showed that in some of their games. So, I think these are two teams that are pretty good. And Minnesota, again, favored by 4.5. I think this is going to be a good one in the Duke's Mayo Bowl. Next up at number 9, we got Baylor versus LSU. This one is on ESPN on Tuesday on New Year's Eve at 3:30 Eastern time. So this will be right before that first playoff game. LSU favored by 3. The opt-outs will be the big story here, but the intrigue in this matchup is Dave Aranda going up against his old team in LSU. A Baylor team that was very quietly 8-4. I bet if you had not looked at records, if you not looked at standings, and I just asked you what was Baylor's record this year, you probably would have said like 6-6, maybe 7-5. Now this team went 8-4, had a pretty good season. And again, depending on who plays in this game, this could be a pretty good matchup. I think if everybody played for LSU, they'd probably win this one pretty easily. But I think they'll probably have more opt-outs than Baylor. So that's going to be interesting to see how all of that plays out. Number 8 game, we got Iowa, Missouri in the Music City Bowl. This one's on Monday, December 30th at 2:30 Eastern time on ESPN. Missouri favored by 3.5. This is a Missouri team that I think was a little bit overrated this year. They did finish 9-3, but they had a very favorable schedule. And an Iowa team that, they were up and down. They had some games, and at times they looked really good, and then other times they looked pretty rough. That offense was pretty good at times and pretty bad at times. It was really an inconsistent Iowa team. This is another one. Who knows who's going to be playing in this matchup. but it's two quality programs, and they should have a pretty good game, I would think. Next, we got the Birmingham Bowl. This one's in at number 7. This one's on Friday, December 27th, so a little bit earlier, one of the earlier bowl games. This one is at 3:30 Eastern Time on ESPN. Georgia Tech is favored by 2.5. A pretty good Georgia Tech team, but a Vanderbilt team that was pretty good this year. And so I just think this is a pretty even matchup. I think the spread would agree at just 2.5 points. This is just an intriguing matchup here. Two teams that I think are pretty solid, and they're going to be playing in Birmingham, so this one should be pretty fun. All right, we've got the Independence Bowl next. This one is on Saturday, December 28th at 9:15 Eastern Time on ESPN. Army favored by 12.5. All right, so I realized after I made my list, you got the head coaching change there at Marshall, and so it's very likely that they're going to have a ton of players enter the transfer portal. But those guys might finish out the season, because even if you enter the transfer portal, you can still play in your bowl game. So that, how many of those players will be there? Army was a big story this year, finishing 11-1. We'll see what happens when they play Navy. Will that record be 12-1, or it could be 11-2? These are just two teams at the Group of 5 level that were really solid, and I just thought this looked like a pretty intriguing matchup. All right, next we've got the Pop-Tarts Bowl, which is probably the most famous bowl game at it gets the most attention, let's just put it that way, outside of the playoff games, because of the big Pop-Tart mascot, and everybody had fun with that last year. This one is on Saturday, December 28th at 3:30 Eastern Time on ABC. Miami favored by 3.5. Not a huge spread there. I have no idea. I haven't seen anything on Cam Ward. Not sure if he's playing. Even if he doesn't play, though, I think this is a good game. I think this is a very competitive game. These two teams have decent depth. I don't think Iowa State's going to have as many opt-outs, but Miami has pretty good depth. So even if they don't have some of their star players, I think they still have enough to make this a very exciting, competitive game. And just an interesting matchup here. Big 12 versus ACC. Looking forward to this one. Next, we've got the Alamo Bowl. This one's at 7:30 Eastern Time on ABC. Colorado favored by 3. Another game where who knows who's going to play. I really just don't know. Will we see Shadir Sanders? Will we see Travis Hunter? This is actually two Big 12 teams. I'm not sure how this happened. I did not look into it, how we wound up with two teams from the same conference in a bowl game. But two teams that, are right there, tied for first place at the end of the regular season. So this should be a very competitive matchup, assuming we see most of the starters play. Next, we've got the Citrus Bowl. This one's at 3 o'clock Eastern Time on New Year's Eve. ABC, South Carolina favored by 11.5. Team that finished really, really hot. And I think they're going to want to go out and make a statement and show that they should have been in the playoff versus an Illinois team that was, they're trying to prove that they belonged in the top 25 this year. Both teams went 9-3. This one just is interesting to me to see how this one plays out. Well, we see anytime it's SEC versus Big Ten, those are games that I find very intriguing. Next, we've got the Las Vegas Bowl, which is also SEC versus Big Ten. Even though it still feels weird to say that USC's in the Big Ten. This one's going to be on Friday, December 27th, so one of those earlier bowl games. 10:30 Eastern Time, playing in Las Vegas. A&M favored by 2.5. USC looking to build towards the future, looking to bounce back next year. Texas A&M looking to, come back from a disappointing finish. I think you'll see a lot of players play in this game. I don't think we'll have too many opt-outs, so I think it'll be a competitive matchup. And this one should be, again, another SEC versus Big Ten. And my number one game is also SEC versus Big Ten. It's the ReliaQuest Bowl. This one's on New Year's Eve at noon Eastern Time on ESPN. Michigan, Alabama. This is a rematch from the playoff game last year. These teams have played several times recently. So, yeah, this is going to be a really fun matchup. We're going to see if that Michigan defense can contain Jalen Milroe. They're going to have a defense that's, could possibly do some things like Oklahoma did. But then on the flip side, can Michigan score any points in this game? I think it's a very low scoring defensive battle. And again, you're just looking at those two brands, Michigan, Alabama. This one, I think the Michigan team's probably going to want this more. If you look at Michigan and the momentum in this program, they are building towards next year, towards a big time rebound and a team that maybe could get into that playoff conversation next season. For Alabama, do the players want to be there? How disappointed are they after missing the playoffs? So you put all that together, and that's why I think this game will actually be really good. and I think it'll be closer than that 11.5 points, unless Michigan's offense just really struggles and Alabama hits some big plays. I could see it getting away from Michigan, but I tend to think that this one will be a competitive game, and I think it's definitely the bowl game outside of the playoff games. It's the bowl game that I'm most excited to see, and that's why I have it at number 1. Which bowl games do you want to see? Let me know your top 10 down in the comments below.